Namaste and welcome to this what will definitely be a very inspiring and thought-provoking deliberative session on Sri Aurobindo and India of the future. So we are delighted that to facilitate this reflection, this discussion on this topic, we have with us an esteemed speaker, Professor Sachidananda Mohanty, with us today. So before I introduce our speaker for the afternoon, let me just say that this event is part of our ongoing series of programs that we've been doing since last year under the title Reawakening the Bharata Shakti towards a new Indian Renaissance. And the idea came about in a conversation with Vijay Bhai when we had put up the exhibition on Bharat Shakti, and he said this should not be just like a one-off thing. Let this work on Bharat Shakti continue. So throughout, since then, this was last May, so since then we've been organizing various kinds of programs under this series. So when it comes to India of the future, naturally it is befitting with this theme of, with the larger theme of reawakening the Bharat Shakti towards a new Indian Renaissance. And I'm really glad that you all have joined us. We will be also sharing the YouTube recording for those who would be watching us later online. And I'm very happy Pradeep Bhai, our chairman, could take some time off from his busy schedule and join us for this program. So when I saw him on Friday, he said, I'm not going to talk, but I'll join if my schedule permits. But I hope we get a chance to hear a few insights from you as well, Pradeep Bhai. So let's just get started with the talk itself. And let me invite Professor Sachidananda Mohanty to yes. Okay.
Let me invite him.
Okay. I would like to just read out his introduction also. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Please do that.
Okay, shall I do that first?
Yeah, no, let me introduce him. Not introduce him, but talk about him. Because the point is introducing him. I think all of us know him. And all of us know him as a great speaker, great communicator. The subjects which are really very close to our hearts, very close to our country, and very close to Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Everything emanates from them. And he is our own part of the family. He's an asset to our family, actually. And he has taken the message forward, which is really the mother's mandate to us. But unless the message reaches people, the real change cannot come. When somebody mentioned to me Professor Sachidananda Mohanty, I said, who is he? We know him as Sachi. So, but we're very, very happy to have you here, Sachi. Once more, I'd like to hear you. And this subject, if you can touch upon this also, which is very interesting, daunting subject. I suppose only you could do this. So, Sri Aurobindo and India of the future can only be bright if it is Sri Aurobindo's. So, I think you have a beautiful subject in hand. Please go ahead and enlighten us.
So,
the more about his background, if anybody wants to know.
Yes. Because I have been surprised how our YouTube videos sometimes somebody out of the blue would say, oh, I found this and this on Society's YouTube channel. So for the sake of those who don't know much about Sri Aurobindo or about Sachi Bhai, as I like to call him, just a little more formal bio about his background. So as we all know, he's a noted academic and cultural historian. He's been a professor and head of the department at the English department at University of Hyderabad and a former chancellor of Central University of Odisha. And wherever he has, whichever academic positions he's held, in his own innovative, experimental ways, he has brought the light of light and spirit of Sri Aurobindo and the mother in his teaching words. He's been also a member of the governing board of Aurobindo Foundation and was nominated by President of India to India's Commission on Education for UNESCO. He's also been a consultant for Ford Foundation, and he's an author of several important books, two of which he's just kind of like, there are, I think, some more flyers. One which I found very useful, Sri Aurobindo, a contemporary leader, which is a very contemporary compilation of Sri Aurobindo's works from India to, Indian culture to life divine and everything in between. And another volume, second edition of this Cosmopolitan Modernity in Early 20th Century India. And on a personal note, I myself have benefited a lot from his critical and very compassionate review of some of my writings and his insights into how to make it better during the last book also that was published, which was edited by our friend Gayatri from Auro Publications. Your insights into that, your preview of that was very helpful. So I thank you. Till now, he would call me sometimes, oh, I read that piece, that was very nice, or that could have been done this way. So I'm very happy for all your insights into that, and I'm looking forward to your topic.
I didn't know about your thing with Ford Foundation. It's not mentioned here.
Just
so much that
space, space limitations.
So Ford Foundation?
I was a consultant for Campus Diversity Initiative.
Oh, wow.
I was a consultant for the Ford Foundation, Campus Diversity Initiative.
Somehow read this next time.
And also Senior Academic Fellow at the American Studies Research Center, Hyderabad.
So, India of the future, which has to be Sri Aurobindo's India of the future. So.
Let me at the outset express my deep gratitude, in particular to Pradeep Bhai. And Pradeep Bhai and Richa Bhai have been a source of encouragement to me for many years, and to Dr. Beloo Mehra and Beloo to us, because she has introduced me as Sachi Bhai. Indeed, we are part of a family, but I am in a different incarnation today. I look at myself basically as a university academic and a professor, but not somebody who has been in the ivory tower, because one of the things that I have been called upon to do have been my role, modest role as a public intellectual. I have written for the mainstream media. And to my mind, I think, and I'm so happy that so many of you have come, it's not necessarily the number that is important, but the intensity of interest and aspiration. And we are particularly happy that we have a senior colleague from the History Department here. And I'll be equally happy and taking the cue of Pradeep Bhai to go and speak at Pondicherry University or any other forum. But for the present, I can vouch for the fact that Beloo has mounted a splendid effort in a very professional manner. I'm very grateful. Among the things which are required and where changes have to be made with regard to Sri Aurobindo, there are two domains which are very important, and those two domains have not been hospitable to Sri Aurobindo. One is the university and the academic world, and the second one is the media. The university and the media, to some mind, function in two separate spheres, but actually they are interconnected, because the products of the leading universities, the man and woman positions in the media itself. So why is it that the university and the media have not been as hospitable? And it is always not a very pleasant thing to say where we are succeeding, where we are not succeeding. But I think Sri Aurobindo taught us to be honest in our own assessment itself, because unless we have this degree of honesty, we will not be able to do justice to the very powerful vision that he has about mankind. Today we are talking about India, and one of the things that I am going to really say is that this intersection between India and the world. Very often we talk about Indian culture and the world culture. But if you see Sri Aurobindo's writing, I will offer a series of propositions in this talk, and this will be followed by an introduction. But those propositions I would like to suggest that are deeply interconnected, logically speaking. The first And of course, we very often listen to what Mother has said, that India is a microcosm of the world. And yet, if we are really concerned about and going beyond the disciplinary boundaries between history, literature, anthropology, sociology, and international relations, we find the truth of what the Mother has been saying. Because there is a deep interconnection between India and the world itself. Even as we are meeting here itself, things are happening in the country, and similar things are also happening outside the world. The second thing that I want to say is that Sri Aurobindo in the Foundations of Indian Culture has talked about the battle of ideas. And I think this battle of ideas, not in a hegemonic and aggressive sense, but in terms of really dealing with those ideas, powerful ideas, in the history of the intellectual history of the world. I think it's very important to really deal with those ideas and to come to terms and to engage. We may not really talk about battles and victory and triumphalism in the sense in which it is generally talked about, but dealing and engaging with the ideas which are contrary to the position that Sri Aurobindo has taken. I think it's very, very important from this point of view. So as a mark of my appreciation of what Beloo has done on behalf of Renaissance Journal, I am going to offer a bonanza to Beloo. Namely, I have written a whole text for you.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm going to give it to you in the printed form so that you can use it as it is. Because we Indians are in the habit of speaking extempore, even in a completely unfocused manner. So I think it's very important as a mark of respect to the audience.
But without being focused.
Thank you. But the point is that I have seen that when you write down your thoughts and ideas, and you can keep it aside, and then you can speak. Because there is a degree of clarity which is generated in your mind itself. Now, let me begin with the notion of the future. Right from Vande Mataram days, and before that also in the Baroda period, 13 years in Baroda, 4 meager years of political life in Bengal, and 40 years of cave of tapasya in Pondicherry. But I think the nation is paid homage to him on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the nation and 150th anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. It is coincided. And with August, I think we'll be completing formally the celebration of the 75th and the 150th anniversary. If you read from the beginning itself, if you are a keen student of Sri Aurobindo, you will see that there is not a single time where he has not used the word future. In fact, the word future is part of his lexicon. It is continuously, punctuating his own intellectual landscape. So future is very important, but we are very wary of the term future. We are uncomfortable with the present. Generally, mankind is very uncomfortable with the present, and we look to the past as a source of nostalgia and as something very comforting, because past is not before us. So longing for that golden age, for that past, for that nostalgia appeals to us clearly. And Mother was very impatient with the past. Sri Aurobindo said past is important, but as long as it really takes us forward. And he said famously, let me quote, we don't belong to the dawns of the past. We belong to the high noons of the future. He could have said, we don't belong to the high noons of the past. We belong to the dawns of the future. Because in the Vedic terminology, dawn and usha is very important. Why is he saying? He's choosing his words with care. We belong to the high noons of the future. We don't belong to the dawns of the past. I think it's very important. With that kind of an expression, Sri Aurobindo is laying bare an entire canvas which was hitherto not really visible to us. The second, as I said, longing for the past. And I think this longing for the past has done enormous amount of harm in the history of mankind. And Sri Aurobindo draws our attention in this book, Human Cycle. There is a chapter called True and False Subjectivism. How, for example, Germany and later on in World War II, Japan mistook this false subjectivism, the ego, for the community, for the group soul. And our own place under the sun, Germany's place under the sun, under the Reich, under the Third Reich, and Germany's desire for the master race, for example, which does not have any kind of a scientific basis. And much before the concentration camps were discovered, by the advancing armies of Eisenhower from the American side and from Zhukov from the Russian side. Sri Aurobindo knew, and he wrote a poem called The Tsar Dwarf Napoleon. And I will really talk about, he was a donor who really supported the war effort. And he was misunderstood. And he actually raised money to be given for the war effort itself. So you can see that the past, the longing and the attachment to the past can also have diabolical consequences in the history of the world. So I think past is interesting, past is fascinating, but rootedness to the past can really take us in regressive directions. Sri Aurobindo was not an aggressive person. He was always a progressive person. He always talked about the future. Third, critics have made a neat distinction between his Baroda days and his Bengal days and his Pondicherry days. A radical break. There is a certain truth, as Sri Aurobindo would say, in every position there is a certain truth. But when it oversteps its boundary, it becomes a falsehood. Shankara is right, Hegel is right, Plato is right, Aristotle is right. But they're right up to a point when they overstep. So this whole attempt to really integrate and to synthesize, to go to a higher level where each finds its own place itself. And the mother says memorably, when you are aware of the whole world at the same time, you can be conscious of the divine. That higher and illumined mind, it really escapes us in the field of historiography, in the field of understanding social behavior in sociology and other disciplines also. And Sri Aurobindo talks about it in the opening chapter, the turn towards unity, its necessity and dangers. It doesn't say unity is wrong, it's necessity and its dangers. And I think many years back, Kirit Bhai told me to emulate the example of Bertrand Russell. How should the mind really function? The enlightened mind should function. Mind has a place, and it cannot be banished. In the synthesis of yoga, Sri Aurobindo is talking about the mind, and human cycle is talking about office and limitation of reason. He doesn't talk about falsity of reason. So this is very important, the neat division between the Baroda, Bengal and Pondicherry days. And yet, deeply interconnected. There is an underlying kind of a continuity that you find there. If you read Sri Aurobindo's works and on himself very carefully, you will see where, for example, there is interconnectivity. Beginning from the period in Alipur case, Alipur Chair experience, then Chandramouli experience. And Chandramouli experience, my dear friends, has been deeply neglected. And here Srinivas Iyengar says that Chandramouli remains an enigma and a mystery. I was invited to Chandramouli. I spoke about the importance of 4th April 1910. Chandramouli is a very, very important episode in Sri Aurobindo's spiritual growth and spiritual evolution. Chandramouli, before that, Alipur case, Chandramouli and Pondicherry, there are intersections and interconnected narratives also. Maybe sometime later on, if given a chance, I will speak about that. I've written about that also. What are the interconnected narratives between Chandramouli, Alipur, Pondicherry and beyond? Now, next point I want to make, as I have suggested, that Chandramouli. Thank you. Chandramouli, we feel that he went and stayed in Motilal Roy's house. That is a popular conception. Richa and Pradeep Bhai. Not only one house, there are many houses. And when I went there, the mayor of Chandramouli had come. I made an appeal to him through the organizers. Let all the houses which are in the state, let them be identified. Like in England, for example, plaques are put not to disturb the present occupants, for example. The present occupants have a proprietary kind of a sense. The house belongs to them because they have bought it from some sources. Let there be a plaque, for example. Because each house is a center of pilgrimage for us. Just as for Shelley and Lake District and military blocks, they can be put also. So he spent a lot of time there itself, and Motilal Roy has written the account in Bengali. Regrettably, it has not been translated into English. It should be translated. into English, Motilal Roy, about how he went into the trances and food was brought, completely unmindful about the food itself. So he was in a state of tapasya and constant meditation also. So there is a big mark because he had his hands over the editorship of Dharma and Karma Yogin to Sister Nivedita. And then of course he goes into trance. So it is a kind of a crucible. It is a crucible. It's a transitional crucible in the evolution of his own spiritual consciousness. He's constantly evolving. And those of us who have
was with him.
he was there. And then that Motilal Roy, the only person who became a confidant with him right up to 1920. And Sri Aurobindo wanted him to stay on, and Sri Aurobindo did not have enough money. It is Motilal Roy. About Paul and Mira Richard, mother, Sri Aurobindo confides to Motilal Roy. They are not misguided theosophists. They are genuine spiritual seekers. So, and Light to Superlight also, the book which has been brought out by Motilal Roy's ashram at that time. So those are very valuable. And so Pradeep, there is a need to talk about that. I promise you I can come back also. But let this be a kind of an episode in my own kind of a narrative which I am giving today. Next is that the next point I want to make, because I suggested that I'm going to offer a series of propositions. And those propositions are deeply connected. And they are very unique to Sri Aurobindo. One is this whole notion of the guru as a thinker and a guru as somebody who is performing action. Now, in our own kind of terms, we find that there is a doer and there is a thinker. Stereotypically, there is Ramakrishna Paramahansa, there is Swami Vivekananda, there is Mazzini in Italy at the time of the Italian War of Independence, unification of the Italian state. There is also Garibaldi. So Sri Aurobindo has talked about Mazzini and Garibaldi. In the case of the French Revolution, Sri Aurobindo is picking up 4 of the figures. And he says, Mirabeau initiated, Danton inspired, Robespierre slew, and Napoleon fulfilled. Is there a necessity and a relevance of talking about the French Revolution of the 4 figures when we are talking about the greatness of India and the world? I believe it is absolutely important, imperative. Because nothing that Sri Aurobindo is saying or in other contexts which are not relevant. We need to have a powerful imagination and critical intelligence to be able to connect them. They're very, very important leaders. So when you are thinking about the leader, in a certain superficial sense, there is also the leader and there is somebody who is the actor. In the case of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. But Sri Aurobindo is talking about a situation that wherever there is any kind of a performance of action, it has to be preceded by contemplation. And I am referring to this famous debate, the exchange of letters which took place between Sri Aurobindo, Dilip Kumar Roy and Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash was there in the Mandalay jail. He writes to Dilip Kumar Roy because Dilip Kumar Roy was interested in bringing all these outstanding personalities at the feet of Sri Aurobindo. And he says, and Subhash is deeply impatient by the time he's fallen out with Gandhiji regarding the presidency of the Congress. He's impatient. And he says, I am impatient with this Sabarmati school, I am impatient with the Pondicherry school, ashram. Pondicherry school of spiritual life. I want action. And Dilip Kumar Roy informs her. And Sri Aurobindo is amused and he writes, all this talk about action, these are his words, all this talk about actions is fine. But action to what end? And we're very happy that we're celebrating Subhash also. But the fact of the matter is that Subhash sided with the Axis powers during World War II. I wish there was also that to say that he's a great leader of the Indian National Army that had come right up to Imphal where there is an internecine warfare going on, ethnic conflict. But yet, he goes to Germany and he quotes the Germans as the Nazis and he does not succeed. And he uses the German U-boat to travel and he goes to Japan. I want to draw your attention to this learned audience about the fact that when Tagore goes for the first time, and Tagore and Sri Aurobindo are kindred souls. When Tagore goes for the first time, is welcomed by the Japanese. But when he goes by the second time, Japan has already embarked on a mission of political expansionism in Manchuria and China, annexing parts of China also. That Japan must also have a place under the sun. Germany must have a place under the sun. And Benito Mussolini, the author of The Doctrine of Fascism, says, well, we must also have a place under the sun. And I think the world has witnessed the catastrophic consequences of the desire to have places under the sun. And Sri Aurobindo in the Arya period has talked about the true and false subjectivism. So action and contemplation have to go hand in hand. And may I say that contemplation has to precede action in order to be meaningful. That's the next point I'm making. Let me go to the next point, that I think the question of missed opportunities. We have an eminent historian with us, and very often we say, after Nehru, missed opportunities. What if the British had not come to India and we did not have this kind of a colonialism? What would have happened? After all, the British introduced the telegraph. After all, the British introduced the railways. And Cambridge University, there are witnesses, such debates now and then. Most recently, our own Shashi Tharoor went, and he has written about the area of darkness, because the colonial rule was uniformly bad for India. But Pradeep Bhai, there are revisionistic historian in England now, is saying that the colonial rule for India, because it was our own civilizing mission, they did not have unity among themselves. They did not have a political formation. Yes, of course, we can talk about Vishnu Purana and the Bharata Varsha, but the political unit in the sense in which it is understood. A society which is politicized is a state. We do not have that according to these revisionistic historians. And I think it's very important to know that we are departing from this kind of an approach. So today we find that there are ethnic rivalries everywhere, many places. And not only Manipur, there is a kind of a cascading effect also in the neighboring state of Mizoram and all that. The question answers are there. I can really answer some of those also, you can see. We have problems in Ukraine also. And you might wonder that, the Bolshevism has gone. Bolshevism has not gone. The desire to really relive and revisit the experiments of Peter the Great, and about Lenin, and about Stalin, and Belarusia, and Central Asian Republic. It seems to us that the achievements of the 20th century have been unfortunately unearthed in the first part of the 21st century. Sri Aurobindo was talking in the human cycle that humanity does not progress in the linear fashion. We might agree with that, because modern European enlightenment has suggested reason, individuality, progress, and universality, the unique features of the European enlightenment. Going in the front, Europe in the vanguard, rest of the countries following them. Sri Aurobindo doesn't agree. And he is talking about the cyclical method. And I think there is a certain truth, because it seems as if there is a relapse to neo-barbarism of the kinds of, atrocities which have been. Yes, the kinds of, Putin, of course, the kinds of things. Most recent yesterday, they're talking about Greek Orthodox Church, common to both Ukraine and Russia. Most recently, not only the grain port that is exporting, but the cathedral has been bombed. So what are we saying? Is there is a progress or there is a regression also? So if Sri Aurobindo's terms, I think there is an apparent lapse to barbarism, to Philistinism. Philistinism, he explains civilization in an outward, superficial sense. No civilization, no culture. He defines culture as the pursuit of the mental life for its own sake, not for commerce, not for business, pursuit of the mental life for its own sake. Now, next is that, as Sri Aurobindo, some people say, he was a realized soul from the beginning. But look at Sri Aurobindo's writings, God's Labor, for example. And he says, the doubt was in me, cowardice was in me. He's telling us, you come and you progress as I am progressing. I was an atheist. Did I really absent myself from the horse riding? I I had read the newspaper clippings given by K.T. Ghose. I don't know whether that is true or not, but he himself is so honest. Just as if you read the lines of A.B. Burani's book on Sri Aurobindo, A.B. Burani. And if you go to the archive, you will see that Paul Richard comes there in 1909, then, and he wants to visit a wise man from the East. And he reads that he has shown the symbols which Mira had sent. And Mother writes on the margin, not I, Richard might have shown. Here is a desire of a disciple to show that Mother herself was so gifted as shown. And Mother says, not me. Look at the humility, look at the exemplary honesty that the Mother has got, and Sri Aurobindo has got. The cowardice was in him, fear was in him. He doesn't become small. He's not belittled because of this reason. I think his Godhead and his divinity, if you were to ask me, is much more enhanced. We talk about humility of human beings, which is masqueraded by arrogance and power. And in short, in this case, genuine humility and integrity. Now, if you see his stand against the Quit India movement, you see, and today, I mean, what is the definition of a leader? I had once read, let me see where the people are going so that I can quickly go and stand before them and proclaim myself as a leader. That's a classic definition of a leader. And if you look at most of the political parties today, the leaders are exactly doing the same thing and they're not thinking. And what does Sri Aurobindo say? The biggest crisis in India is not for resources. It's not a population. He says it is thought phobia. The refusal to think, the willingness to really pigeonhole our own thoughts in a straitjacket, whether it is religion, whether it is society, whether it is polity, whether it is family. Received wisdom, packaged and sold. Sri Aurobindo says, and where does he say? We have to think of the context. When Barin, who was incarcerated and implicated in the Alipur bomb case, and he was sentenced to death, and he was concerned, asked his brother, he says, you are not going to be executed. And appeal is made, and he goes on board SS Maharaja. I've written about it, 12 years in the Andaman. The book is there. For the first time, it was published by Arya House. I took it from the Cornell University's digital library, History, gave it to Manoj Dasgupta. The book is published. He comes out, and then he has conversation with his brother, and he's written about it, very beautiful, what was happening there. And then Sri Aurobindo says to Bari, and he had asked him to go to Bengal and to Gujarat to start Bhawanipur. Very interesting. The nucleus of a place community living, not only with Motilal Roy's, there was Sangha, but also in Bhawanipur. So there are all these kinds of instances, and it's onion-like structure. It's not one time. Many experiments are taking place. And Sri Aurobindo, is telling him, what is the biggest problem, Bari, that afflicts India? Thought phobia. Afraid of thinking. We have the largest scientific manpower, but we have Hargobind Khurana, India born, S. Chandrasekhar, India born, and a solitary Rabindranath Tagore. So we have a race of also ran. Sri Aurobindo was not asking us to be also ran. He wanted us to be in the forefront. It is not by acts of chauvinism, national chauvinism, that we are going to reach that target. We must really look at ourselves with genuine introspection. And Sri Aurobindo, in all his books, Renaissance in India, Foundations of Indian Culture, you never find Sri Aurobindo doing any kind of a chest thumping kind of an activity about the greatness of India. He's all the time sufficiently aware of the other civilizations also. He's a cosmopolitan, Pratibha, you asked me, cosmopolitan modernity. Today, on account of the prolonged colonialism from the West, metropolitan West, we think that everything is given by the West. I'm not saying that everything is given by India. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we had medical operation because of the Ganesha. That would be a travesty of truth. Sri Aurobindo was not talking about the revivalistic approaches. He was talking about the progressive approaches. In the foundations of Indian culture, he builds on the book which is called Is India Civilized? And William Archer's book, Indian Culture and the Future of the World's Future. William Archer. He says, what is a joie d'esprit? You are talking about India. And the well-known tantric scholar had read and asked this rhetorical question, is India civilized? Sri Aurobindo is answered. A defense of Indian culture, he says. And a defense, we have to really defend ourselves. So he comes there, but he is convinced about this certitude, for example. There are many people who are advising him. Somebody says, why are you here in Pondicherry? Because close Bulai is Kadalur. And any times you can be realized there are British spies. Why don't you go to a safe haven? Algeria, for example. He says, I refuse to budge. I refuse to budge from this place. Because when he's firm, he can be very, very firm. I refuse to. Every Puran, he says, suppose I give you the guarantee assurance. I give you the guarantee. And he looks through the window and at the sea itself. Why should I be here? My job is to fulfill your task, freedom of the country. And Sri Aurobindo says, supposing I give you the guarantee, I give you the guarantee that the sense of vitality, this stereotypical notion that Sri Aurobindo is a very gentle person. When he wanted, he can be very, very firm. He refused to go to Algeria. He says, I don't want to go to Algeria. I want to remain here itself. Because everybody is advising him. All his own followers are advising him. So you can see that, and then later on, Paul says, he goes against the dominant trends of the day. During Bengal period, it was very popular. 1920, he is invited by two persons, Dr. Baptista and Dr. Munche, to take over the Congress Party's leadership in 1920 in the Nagpur session. And he says, I don't want to go, because my yoga is very different. And my notion of understanding the political life is very different, even in the Tilikite life. He was so close to Bal Gangadhar Tilak. By 1920, ideologically, his party had company. Although he was here itself, he did not believe in power politics of the conventional kind. But if you look at his stand from the beginning till the time of the Korean War, and the cabinet mission plan, and the Quit India movement, the Cripps mission is deeply political. By political, it means that he is concerned about the fate of India. He is concerned about the fate of what? Korean part. Korean aggression, 1949, 1950, after the Second World War. Before that, Pradeep Bhai, it is Mao's aggression against Tibet. And Amal Kiran, Katie said, I have written about it, it has been published in the Quit. And he was giving the testimony of Sri Aurobindo in the Mother India, because each editorial is to be read out. And Mother Sri Aurobindo used to give the stamp of approval. And in 1950 he says, this is the first step of Mao's aggression against Tibet before he steps into South Asia. And from South Asia he'll go to other parts of Asia. It is part of the communist plan. And there is no reason, once he succeeds in Tibet and India, for example, why other countries will not really follow one after the other. It must be stopped. 1962, he fled. Dalai Lama fled for asylum to India. And Sudhir Ghosh, you must read the book Gandhi's Emissary. I'm told that he used to visit Pondicherry. He's written about Gandhi's Emissary. The last part is an emissary of Nehru. He goes, Nehru doesn't want him to go to America, because the only country which really offered help, air power to India, was the United States, which was being constantly berated by the non-aligned speaking India. We don't want this. Actually, they were on the side of Czechoslovakia, on the side of Hungary and Soviet Union. Kennedy sends weapons, but before the weapons could be opened, the Chinese declared unilateral ceasefire. And Sri Aurobindo has talked about this. And Sudhir Ghosh goes to JFK, and John F. Kennedy looks at this testament, which was used by K.D. Setna. There must be some kind of a typographical error here. Are you saying 1962, 1950? Are you saying these are his words, JFK's words? And today we are remembering JFK because of the Artemis program in the Kennedy Space Center. And he says, JFK says, are you telling me that a yogi sitting in South India could know about the plans of Mao Zedong? If only we could read. If only we could read what K.D. Setna has written in Mother India, and society has brought out. And I was fortunate enough to write the foreword to that. It's insane. Society has brought out the editorials of K.D. Setna, given by Amal Kira. In political sphere, in religious sphere, in spiritual domain, in social domain, cultural domain, in every domain, Sri Aurobindo has given us statements. What I have been trying to do is to show powerfully the connections that exist today itself, if only we were to read. So during the war, he supports the war effort. And we know how Mother, for example, sold her own kind of saris to feed. And Mother did not want Bari to go to Calcutta. And Bari goes there, and there is a receipt of the money order that Mother used to send to Bari. Once a disciple, always a disciple, even if you part company. The compassionate nature of what Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So another question that was raised in 1933, and the question is, you are the person who is going to save India. The correspondent writes to Sri Aurobindo. You with your power is going to save India, 1935. Then Sri Aurobindo says, that is all settled. That is all settled. He doesn't say, on the one hand it may be said that the British might really withdraw. On the other hand, it might be said the Japanese are also advancing. I'm not sure what should be said. He's not talking like a typical economist or a political scientist. He says, that's all settled. He says that's all settled. It is a question of working out only. The question is, what is India going to do with her independence? The above kind of affair, Bolshevism, Gundaraj, things look ominous. I think he was very right about the Gundaraj part. Very right about Bolshevism and the Gundaraj part. So, you must now, I am coming close because, I must not really. 11th commandment, thou shalt not really exceed the time that is given to you. 11th commandment, I remember my professor used to say, you must really know, we were talking about what is the India's future, the future of Indian culture. You must read, because much has been said. And we must read the original writing. When Sir C.R. Reddy invites him, he was nominated for the Nobel Prize by Aldous Huxley and Gabriel Mistral of Chile. But, C.R. Reddy, the legendary Vice Chancellor I wish there were more Vice Chancellors like him invites, and he gives a message. And he talks for the first time, he talks about the greatness of India's regional cultures. Typically, I think traditionally we feel that it's a source of great weakness of India. So many languages, 16 languages. We should be like Europe, one language. And 2 languages in Sri Lanka, they are not able to handle, Sinhala and Tamil. 16 languages, my gosh. And Sri Aurobindo is saying it's a good thing that India has so many languages. And my friend, my former classmate Bala is always excited. He says, I have read this essay so many times. Bala, I'm not a Telugu, but I am really impressed by this when she is really talking about the greatness of Telugu culture. Apart from the fact that Hyderabad and Andhra Pradesh has given me bread and butter in my own life itself. And Bala says, serves you right. Alright, so then he's talking about the greatness of the Andhra tradition. But beyond Andhra tradition, he's talking about the greatness of the regional cultures and the languages of India. Vijayanagar Empire has so many, Orissa and Bengal, classical languages. So we sing mechanically those Vande Uttara Ganga, but we don't realize the the value of the vitality of our own languages and linguistic tradition. 1948, he said. Another important thing that he says, what is the role of India? To play power politics? To go to Paris and on board the Rafale plane right home to show our own greatness? No, that is not the aim of India. To show our own power politics on the international stage. He says if we were to do that in the expansionistic manner, in the political expansionism, India would have really secured a place for itself. But eternal India would have failed in our own mission itself. The greatness of Indian spirituality, which is tolerant, which is compassionate, which has no pretensions to lord over any other empires and groups of people. That's what he's saying. And you must read alongside this another essay to the Message to America, you must read, where he's talking about the coming together of India and America. When he's talking about Western materialism and Indian spirituality / Eastern spirituality, he's not saying that the West does not have its own kuta, spirituality. The Gnostics of ancient Greece, Saint Augustine, for example, and then, of course, in India we have the Charvakas tradition. He's not creating this kind of an artificial demarcation between these. What he's saying is the predominant aspects of the East and the predominant leitmotif of the East itself. So, let me come finally, because there are many things to be done. But as I said, 11th commandment was not to be broken. So, let me come to the final. So the strength and resilience of India has to be anchored to a deeper understanding of what Indian culture is all about. In Foundations of Indian Culture and Renaissance in India, he's talking about the revisiting of our own ancient traditions and the principles, to bring them up in the modern conditions so that they can be redefined and reapplied in our own context itself. If you look at the last chapter of the Foundations of Indian Culture, and it was actually, we do not know that many of these books were meant as work in progress. We don't know. We think that foundation of Indian culture is complete. He wanted to revise. We think that ideal of humanity is complete. No, he does not have time. He's writing Life Divine and Savitri. He writes only a postscript chapter and he revised the footnotes there to bring it up to date itself. So when you is thinking about this, when you are looking at the surface view, we feel that there is a lot of despair and pessimism with what India is really doing. But he was not the only one. Much before that, when he was coming to India, another monk was traveling to the West. That was Swami Vivekananda. And along with Swami Vivekananda, it's another powerful trajectory of the very outstanding women from the West who are traveling to India. Sister Nivedita, who has written Cradle Tales of Hinduism. And I've written about 3 women and 4 destinies. Who are the 3 women and who are the 4 destinies? Dear Beloo, my sister. The 3 women are Shardamani, Sister Nivedita, Sister Sadira, and the 4th woman is Mridani Devi. Because Mridani Devi was influenced and inspired by Sister Sadira. And if you read the Bosford Lane, Sister Nivedita should be read in the classroom context, our friend in the history department at the school level itself. She used to go into trance. She drove herself to death, died in 1910 itself, 1911. And used to read before all the destitute women, Bharata Varsha, Bharata Varsha, Bharata Varsha, used to go into trance. And then, of course, there are others also who have come. And many Western women who have come to India. And they have made India their own place itself. Because they have discovered, the Annie Besant, for example, part of the Women League movement. And Sri Aurobindo has talked about Annie Besant and others. So there are multiple trajectories which are there. And all these trajectories, like almost streams, they join together and they merge into the great ocean of Indian culture and Indian civilization itself. Now I want to really, he dreams, of course, the 1947, 15th August 1947. The message that was broadcast over radio, Chandramouli is very well known, 5 dreams that he had. freedom of India, the rise of Asia, then the world union, and the supermentalization of it. And the world is, those are the 5 dreams that he had. And those dreams are in the process of being realized. Let me really come to the final part itself. You have seen that we have gone through this roller coaster ride of knowing about what Sri Aurobindo has to offer to India and the world. I made this claim in the beginning. I hope the truth of my claim has been realized, that there is a deep intersection between the fate of India and the fate of the world itself. Those are intersections, paths and intersections. And I cannot do anything better than referring to some very important kind of a film which has been made, as we are most recently. This is a film about J. Robert Oppenheimer, the maker of the atom.
And I'm going to watch it
tomorrow. I have been reading in New York Times, Oppenheimer.
There's a movie.
When I was in, yes.
Yeah, it just came last week.
Just came. Because I've been reading in New York Times and New Yorker also. Yes, and there is a personal anecdote. 2005, when I was a Fulbright in Harvard University. In the Harvard bookstore, I saw this book. American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Curious, I read this book. And somebody who recites the lines from the Gita, and he sees this explosion, experimental explosion taking place. And then he applauds, and he becomes a national hero. Then the second bomb is dropped in Nagasaki.
Yes.
He's filled with horror. And then he goes to Truman, and he thinks that Truman is going to really give him accolades. And the first thing that he says to him is that, Mr. President, I have blood on my hands. Oppenheimer. And he's disgraced because he objects. And he sends word to Jawaharlal Nehru through Vijayalakshmi Pandit. Ask Mr. Nehru not to supply thorium to the Americans, because if this kind of a war takes place. 1948, I've just read the article in the Foreign Affairs, the classic article by J. Robert Oppenheimer. Not a political scientist, but a nuclear physicist. Somebody who doesn't claim for the nuclear energy, but he assembled the bomb in the deserts of New Mexico. And what does he say? He says, finally, I just want to refer to the last thing. That everything is really quotable. I want to really talk about the last thing that he says in the Foreign Affairs. The journal for realistic study of world affairs, foreign affairs. He says, there is a power to do good and there is a power to do evil. He hopes that the scientific community will rise above their own limitations and will think of power to do good and to control the nuclear proliferation. Thank you very much.
It's very, very good, really. Well said with your talk. Just 2-3 questions that rise. One is you've spoken of the getting together of Italy, Japan, and Germany, and each one trying to find a place in the sun. That's what you said. There was this big common force which was pushing them together. And Japan woke up a little later. But it's the force of Germany which really set the ball rolling, basically. But it's the same force. It's the same force that the mother damaged and shattered ultimately when she made him attack Russia.
Right.
So, these three, especially who are together, was there any specific thing, the reason that Italy and Japan and Germany were together and no other European nation?
Yes. There are historical reasons also. The major historical reason for Germany to rally around Hitler and this anti-Semitic kind of a slogan that he gave, targeting the Jews, was the Treaty of Versailles, which humiliated Germany and which forced Germany to make war reparations of an enormous kind. It really bled Germany dry. It was quite convenient because the Germans are a very disciplined race. It was very convenient for him to sell this idea to the German people that you have been humiliated by an internal enemy. And the internal enemies are the Jews. And Mein Kampf, if you read Mein Kampf as I have done, you think that it's just madman's rambling, but he succeeded. And all the things that he did in order to capture power, he did not have the majority support. He took over power. Italy's case, the greatness of Italy, the glory of, Greece and Rome, for example, and all that he was doing, Mussolini was doing. And they didn't have the fighting ability, obviously. They lost in Abyssinia and in other parts also. The Germans in Crete and Greece had to really step in. In Italy itself, if you read the Battle of Monte Cassino, for example, because Sri Aurobindo was watching the progress of the war, and in order to know the truth of what he was saying, you have to watch the Battle of El Alamein, for example, the famous battle between General Rommel and his counterpart, the British counterpart, and Battle of El Alamein in North Africa, and the Battle of Monte Cassino in Italy itself. The Germans basically take over Italy. And then there is an attempt to really rescue him, but then they failed. So Italy is a latecomer. They don't have the fighting ability. Germany does all the fighting. And Japan waits till the bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941 to join. And the Americans are really sitting on the fence. They do not do anything until their own battleships are sunk in the Battle of Pearl Harbor. Read that, see that film, Tora, Tora, Tora.
Yes. Okay, but the other thing that you mentioned was the Sri Aurobindo saw the strength in the diversity of languages. And ultimately, India is divided on the basis of language. So it led to a division. So the unity led to a division. All the states have been treated on a linguistic basis. And it has created a certain amount of division which was not there earlier on. And people lived with each other in peace. What happened? That one action of one man in Kerala set the whole body of linguistic states. And Bombay was separated, Gujaratis and the...
Actually, it was a Telugu.
Very well.
It was a Telugu, Ramlu. I got it, right? So I'm absolutely... It's a Telugu person, not Kerala. Telugu.
Yeah, but was it...
1956 state reorganization.
Yes. State got
divided.
forced to continue.
Yes,
At some point, he wanted to give it.
Madras state was
Got
split.
divided into
Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Yes. But please go on. The point is
person who died
Yeah.
of hunger strike,
Yes.
that was in Kerala.
No, it's in hunger strike. He died.
No.
Please go ahead. The point,
And my point,
the point is divisiveness.
The point is this division took place during Nehru's time, and they could not control this linguistic division that took place, and that has harmed the nation. And there doesn't seem to be any movement against it. I mean, to get together. Even the other day, Beloo and I were speaking about the division in Tamil Nadu itself. They speak on talking about the Aryan and the Dravidian issue, which is absolutely ridiculous, really. But they go on harping on it. And finally, I have looked you my copy of my letter to the Chief Minister, Mr. Stalin, that you, my dear friend, are a Dravidian, but you have Aryan characteristics, which she does. She does have. And this is what I'm trying to tell you is that there is no difference between the two. How far it goes is another issue. But this broken up India because of the language problem has somehow to be sorted out. But it has not happened. But what led to it? Again the basic problem that we all have, the force that is moving against unity. Am I right? Is that?
Well, would you like me to respond?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, you see, when you look at Sri Aurobindo's understanding of language in the ideal of humanity, and it's a chapter called Diversity and Oneness. Those are very important chapters of Sri Aurobindo when he's talking about the world union or the world state. And finally says it should be world union. It's not a world state. And the reason is that, everything, as I said, for him there is a certain truth. But if you take it in an extreme manner, it becomes a falsity. Language has a certain truth, but linguistic chauvinism is wrong. Diversity, cultures, and today the linguists are saying, if a language dies, whole culture dies. Jarawa tribe have died because there is no culture there, also there is no language. In some parts of the world, languages are advancing in a breakneck speed. Some indigenous language is dying out or receding. For example, in America, it's not English, it is Spanish which is really exceeding. Moving at a rapid rate from New York to Los Angeles, for example, because the Hispanic population is increasing. The whole of America, barring Brazil, is actually Spanish speaking. So that has a big impact also. Now, so Hispanic culture, Hispanic language, Spain, etc., may not be really bad in itself. But when they try to dethrone other languages, that becomes bad. There are people, there are theorists like Charles Taylor of Canada, for example, multiculturalists. They're trying to tell us how to have language and how to avoid the pitfall of linguistic chauvinism. How to have nationalism and how to avoid jingoism, ultranationalism, for example, chauvinism. So the point of the matter is that politicians have hijacked the agenda based on falsehood. Today, the scientists, the geneticists have proved that all the people of the subcontinent have the same origin. So where is Stalin and where are the Aryans, for example? And the Marxist historian, who otherwise is inimical to Sri Aurobindo, Romila Thapar, has said that Aryans and Dravidians are not racial types, but cultural types. That's what Sri Aurobindo was saying in Secret of the Vedas also. So I think Romila Thapar has said that, has admitted that Aryans and Dravidians are not racial type.
I have one more question. So I crossed the 12th commandment.
Yeah.
There are not too many questions.
Yes, please, I am all yours.
You talk about the 11th, I'm talking about the 12th one.
Sure.
Too many questions.
Please.
So now one last question, and I'm throwing up a question.
Please.
Is we spoke of Oppenheimer and what like the bomb, etc. What about artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
Now, 350 great intellectuals have written a letter to the United Nations that this will end the world. This will bring an evil.
There will be for a pause in the research, AI research.
Yeah, and and they also said that, and of course, the example of Frankenstein is always given.
Of course.
I am not quite sure about this. I've thought of this AI, and the person who created AI has made a statement that by the time GPT-10 comes, the whole universe would have changed. Now, change to what? In what direction? Evil? Purity? Or what is going to happen? Many of us believe that ultimately it will be like Frankenstein, that will eat up whatever. But I want to really ask you and all of us today that human consciousness is evolving and it is carrying speed. That's what Sri Aurobindo says. And if human consciousness is evolving, why do you think that AI will evolve faster than the human consciousness? And hence, therefore, it will not be a tool, but will rule us. I don't think it will ever happen. It cannot happen.
Well, I can try a response to you. One is that, Pradeep bhai, that itself might be very comforting. But I think we have to really look at the narrative of scientific experiments that have gone terribly wrong. I'm referring to eugenics, for example, early 19th and late 19th, early 20th century. The whole scientific approach of creating a master race that resulted in Hitler's claim to create an Aryan race. We have to read this book, The Rise and Fall of Third Reich, by Hitler and Stalin, Parallel Lives, Alan Bullock. We have to read. There was a man called Joseph Mengele. I have read about this. He was called a doctor of death. And his task was to inject dye into the eyes of the Jewish prisoners in the concentration camps. So I think mankind has gone through this whole business of creating master race through eugenics, etc. And we know about the dangers of the cloning experiments which are also going on. Once in a while the scientists talk about bioethics, for example. But bioethics has not been sufficiently really talked about in the scientific domain. There are serious dangers. I mean, for one thing, for example, I would not like to be replaced by an artificial intelligence. There's every chance, because I read most recently a college essay. The college essay is going to be obliterated because artificial intelligence is going to produce. It's not even plagiarism.
Yeah.
There is an anti-plagiarism where also. Turnitin. No Turnitin can succeed. Because you are producing a kind of a college essay where the instructors will become totally ignorant. So there are serious dangers. So what I talk about is that I really theorize it in an alternative manner, Pradeep bhai. I am saying, what is going to be our notion of the post-human? I turned the table. I asked a diametrically opposite question. What is going to be the nation? And it should be really projected at the broad national, international level. What is going to be the notion of our post-human? We have post-humanism. We have post-feminism. What is going to be the post? Post. Is it going to be robotics? Is it going to be digital text? Is it going to be artificial intelligence? Or is it going to be the change of consciousness of the kind that Aurobindo and India and others were also talking about? So I think it is a laptop. We don't really want to be captivated by machinery or robotics, etc. Because there are great harms, there are great dangers. To have technology is fine, but to be aware of the perils and dangers of technology.
Yeah, but we have to rule technology. We have to use technology.
Yes. So that is what I was going to say. Let us engage with technology, and as Oppenheimer, the great scientist, said, the technology is power to do good and power to do evil. I still am a believer that along with technology and science, that we should have the overriding desire to do good and not evil. So on that note, and anyone else who has... Yes, but...
Can you just
yes.
speak in that?
Yes.
So it will be recorded.
Mr. Linda, can I have a little water, please?
Yeah.
Somebody can give me some water.
So, there's some water. Even my voice is quite okay.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
That's yours, actually.
Thank you.
This is
So-
also yours.
Yeah.
I would like to just add a few points to my dear classmate, my dearest classmate, and my role model student. I used to always try to compete Sachi and could never reach. As a kid, not as a teenager also, as a kid. He is too much with the books.
Don't make me a bookworm.
No, I'm not calling you mom.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
So, regarding artificial intelligence, as I have continued my studies with this software only for the last 40 years. And I have attended a conference also on artificial intelligence, AI. The thing that is spreading, either it is a positive thing that we spread or a negative thing. Actually, it is nothing. It is a machine. And what they have done is, they have widely machined with the database. Database is 3,70,000 trillion data bytes. That is the size of the artificial. I've seen the artificial intelligence server in California, 2 servers, there are many servers. It is just like our brain stores whatever we see and think, no? So they just like they are now having an artificial kidney, artificial for everything, bio or anything, robotics. Similarly, they try to wire the whole brain into a machine they call server, artificial server, AI server. And then they have a very fast IO, means transaction. You ask a question, it replies and all that. But it is what is put inside the AI server is again made by the man. It is not a consciousness, and let us not use any of our most beautiful words for AI. It is a super fast machine. It is like once upon a time my grandma used to do the grinding, now I put it in the automatic. Now we make the roti ready. Same way, you know, with the trains are running with the electric. So similarly, they have wired the entire brain's replica and all the data that is stored. This is also data, no, but memory cells. So they call it memory cells of AI. I'm just talking a little techie, I think, I don't know, you won't get bored. So it is the memory cells in bytes and all that, and then they get. So whatever is, AI is a machine. AI is a machine with huge database created by humans only. So it is in our hand, like I'm holding this, I'm holding this. It can never control us because it is created. Like we designed a car, we can destroy a car. That is it.
Yes, please identify yourself.
Yeah, I'm Guy.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Gayatri. So it's really a pleasure listening to you, sir, and and it's a relief as well because you talk very differently from many others we hear. And I'm glad that you've brought up that Sri Aurobindo was not really for nationalistic chauvinism, because oftentimes I find that he's quoted to stoke the fires of nationalism. So it's a great relief to know that there is this side of him and the examples he gives. So this is just a comment and the battle of ideas and engaging with those ideas.
It is not also. That is the side.
Yes. Okay. So it's a great. So I wanted to thank you.
Can I ask you something?
Thank you,
Can
Gayatri.
you just speak into the
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Yes, hi. Turn it on, yeah.
Hello. Hello, Sachida. Yeah, it's true that, by now we all, agree that we're all of the same race. Aryan and Dravidian is not there. But how do we interpret this story that Agastya, when he came down, the way the Tamilians look at it is they say, we were Dravidians and Agastya came and Aryanized us. He brought, before that it's a different culture. So in what context do we look at it as, because everything in our Puranas and past is a little symbolic. So is there some symbolism to this also?
Well, Lakshmi or Jyoti, both are fabulous names. But I'll call you Lakshmi. Lakshmi, lot of our own ideas, beginning with Edward Said's Orientalism, how the ideas are constructed, how the ideas are circulating and traveling. It's not a mysterious process. There are ideological, social, cultural forces which are, and the difference between dialect and a standard language. And the definition of a standard language is a dialect which is backed by army and navy, becomes a standard language. So there is that material and economic factors also, ideological factors of creating this notion of Aryans coming to South, Dravidians being the victims, etc. And Amal Kiran has written, just a minute, Amal Kiran, K.G. Setta has written about this. So we have to, I think my simple answer will be to divest ourselves from a lot of the stereotypes which are circulating and look at things afresh.
I mean, this story of the Agastya coming down to that also, you feel it's irrelevant now?
It is relevant, but I'll give you the answer in a focal manner. One is this whole notion of Dasyus. Go back to the Vedas also. Dasyus are not brigands. They're not cutthroats. Dasyus, these are all metaphorical representations, of demons and Dasyus, etc. So these, dark people, dark-skinned people, referring to this virtue and vice, for example, in that sense, in the metaphorical and symbolic thing. Just as Sri Aurobindo is talking about symbolic and the origin of Aryan speech, a fragment, wanted to develop that, and he could have said more. So I feel that this whole idea Dravidian is inferior, Aryans are superior, that is absolutely a kind of a baseless concept.
Yeah, that has been
Baseless.
accepted. But
And
I
then
wonder
Agastya.
this little mythology
not
No,
communist story.
no, Agastya.
How did it come into?
For example, much. I mean, I'm not a
I
student.
mean, I agree that there's no difference.
No,
between
there are some people in the French Institute who have tried to study this phenomenon. I must confess, when I don't know something, I must say, I don't know enough about Agastya's traveling to South India. I know that Agastya and Lobamudra, and the legend is that where our own samadhis and ashram is, that was Agastya's ashram. That's part of the hearsay and legend. But I don't have scientific evidence.
I think Agastya had better thing to do.
Yeah, but I think had better things to do, he said, than this Aryanizing. But I think Rishi Agastya is also known as the first Siddha. So he is part of the Tamil heritage also. I mean, so I think again there is this myth that has been propagated that he came to Aryanize. But he was traveling because just he was traveling. It was not with a certain civilizing mission as such. Otherwise, he would not be accepted by the Tamil native culture as first Siddha. So I think there is political
very much later.
politicization.
I have been studying and joining some Tamil groups and Tamil things and the Sangam literature. And I'm involved more with the Tamil people now with the study of this subject. Tamil Sangam.
See, and that's also we have.
The word Dravida, D-R-A-V-I-D, is not found even in the Sangam literature.
Really?
Yes, it's simply about
It is
the
a
geography.
creation after the British came.
But it's about the geography, where the
No, and then there is a.
But we have a historian here, so maybe we
would you
can
agree
hear
to the
from
word?
Professor
Would you agree,
Chandramouli.
Professor, would you agree to the word in Adi Shankaracharya's questions with the Viveka Chodamani and the books of the Prastavitrayam? Because I learned it from the Shankar Math, not other places. So there is a word called Drava Vidha, Samskrita. Drava means water, Vidha means Samudra. So Adi Shankara says, Aham Drava Vidha Bhumyaha Agachami Kaveri Nadi Pranta Kerala. So he says, I come from near to Kaveri Nadi. Drava means water, Vidha means, and if you can see in Tamil dictionary and also Shankar Matham has declared that peninsula word was Drava Vidha and that got distorted because Tamil doesn't have Dra, it became Da, Drava and Vidha become, then the British naturally like all other names it became Dravida.
1 second, just before the history professor, Lakshmi, I must
Please,
confess,
would you try just
I don't know
very
enough
quickly.
about this.
We do
I don't know
some
enough.
mistake.
No.
This is what I learned.
Perhaps they're true. This must be a
Yes.
relative constitution.
Yes,
actually.
thank you. History
To
friend.
put it, I'm Chandramouli from Department of History, Pondicherry University, and I feel blessed to be here, courtesy Dr. Beloo and the respected chair, the speaker, and who represents now, as I can see, the quintessence of Panjari ideology, Sachidananda. So, and your lecture, in fact, an enlightened one. And I have many things to debate, but since you talked about the 11th commandment, so I should not transgress into that first. See, three things, Professor. First thing, you spoke about the Vishnu Purana's dictum of Bharatavarsha. Whether it is Sri Aurobindo, the master, whether it is the mother, whether it is Stella Clamrish, whether it is Nivedita, anybody who came to India, they looked for the cultural glory. And it is the British who created all ruckus in the country by distorting everything, by creating dissensions among the people, dividing the country and spoiling it beyond repair. Right? And now, today, India is again looking back into its past so that they can gain some lessons from it. To repair ourselves, our own mindset, our own thinking, our own thought processes, and to elevate our own people into a higher level of spiritual enlightenment. And at a time when the Vishnu Purana was written, there were no kingdoms, no kings, no empires, and they are talking about Bharatavarsha, which is a cultural unity. Right? And even today we are talking about India as a cultural representative for the entire world. We are not providing anything materialistic except the spiritual. And Aurobindo is the master of that exposition of the beauty of India. And although I have been staying in Pondicherry for the last 16 years, I never had the opportunity to sit amongst these other studies who have drank the nectar of Aurobindo's kingdom, spiritual kingdom, and I am just tasting it now. And I thank Dr. Beloo for forwarding the invitation, and then I am fortunate to listen to you and to add a little bit more, although it is out of the context of the talk. See, as she has rightly said, there is no word Dravida in any of the literary constructions of ancient or medieval or modern India. Ashokan inscriptions talks about a language called Tamil. We don't know what he means by that. And it is the Christian missionaries who created this horrible term Dravida. And then the entire political discourse has begun. And now India is being looked at as two different segments, the Aryan and the Dravidian. And foolishly, in 21st century, we are still talking about the same nasty words which have no historical relevance, no historical basis. At least now the time has come. And you talked about Professor Romila Thapar, who is another Towser, having all the respect for her scholarship. And she has carried on her shoulder the nasty weight of communist ideology, a defunct one. And then the entire world has left it. Yes, in India we are still clinging to that outdated ideology. And she has, as you have rightly said, she now says that these two words, Aryan and Dravidian, may represent the groups of languages spoken by the people. And coming to the Dasas and Dasyus, now it has been accepted by the historians that both these groups, which are wrongly being described as belonging to the non-Aryan, quote-unquote Dravidian groups of people, in fact belong to the earlier waves of migration of the same people and who merges with the native people. Because of the intermarriages, the entire thing changes and they were identified as Dasas and Dasyus. So that is what the current state of research stands. So, and at least now let us shed these two words, Aryan and Dravidian, let us look at India as a cultural whole to which...
I think you should write something. You should write something.
Okay.
From historical point of view.
Yeah. In the classes we tell the students, and to add one more thing, as Sri
You know, so right till she finished it.
Sir, he will be beaten black and blue if we talk about these things.
No, we'll send it anonymously.
Anonymously we will.
The note that I prepared is also going to go anonymously,
No,
not with mine.
We can
See, the way politicians are talking about killing a language, Sanskrit. See, people talks about killing a language and the people who spoke the Sanskrit. So such was the condition of India today. That is because of the Christian missionaries who have sown the seeds of dissension in South India.
So I completely agree with what Professor Chandramouli has said and all the points that your interventions are very welcome.
I also wanted to just quickly
Yes.
acknowledge, we have Dr. Richa Tiwari with us from Pondicherry
Oh,
University. She holds the
Sri
Aurobindo Chair.
Very nice.
So I wondered, thank you for joining us. So I wondered if you had any
tell us
comment
something,
or
yes. Tell us
any
something, we are honored.
comment
that we are
about what
yes.
the topic.
Actually, I'm here more as a learner rather than, so like we were having these discussions and I was just wondering, my mind was wandering actually, that we've had such a, huge history of spirituality. We talk about Indian spirituality. Then we are also talking about the scientific innovations like Pradeep sir was talking about the AI and everything. So just now this question came to my mind that why is spirituality not able to keep pace with the scientific inventions? Like what is lacking? Because spirituality, we have had such a historical tradition of it. There was a time when India was active and awakened. But we lost some time in between due to invasions and everything. But why are we not able to why is spirituality not able to keep pace with these scientific innovations? Like, because even scientific investigation, it needs inquiry, it needs analysis, it needs a lot of speculation. which is also the case with spirituality, but yeah, one is from within and one is from outside. But why is it like when we meet students in class, this is not a topic for discussion. Like the other day I was teaching Plato. So Plato is talking about theory of forms and ideas. So there was a student of mine who was like, why do we even need that otherworldly thing? When we have everything in front of us, why do we need to think about that otherworldly thing? So, and
I got your question. Can I answer?
please, thank you.
First of all, thank you for your presence here. And my answer is very simple. What is the definition of spirituality? I think spirituality, the term itself, yes.
The term itself has been a free-floating signifier, meaning different things to different people. In the Aurobindonian context, because we can talk about Shankara's context, Aurobindonian context, the Gnostic circles context in Greece and all that. In Aurobindonian context, spirituality is not an add-on to anything. Spirituality is an entire gamut of looking at life, and that includes ethics and science also. So if you look at Sri Aurobindo's treatise, I'm sure, in Life Divine also, he's talking about matter, energy and consciousness. And he's also talking about wireless kind of telegraphy, etc. So there are many scientific models that he's talking about. When he's talking about the coming of the Superman, he's talking also about the missing link. There are many scientific issues that he's talking about. What spirituality means in Life Divine and the synthesis of yoga is to have an inner life, to look at life from within. That is what spirituality is all about. And also giving enormous freedom to each individual with religion and religiosity to not do that. So if we were to really approach our students from this point of view, that spirituality is a way of looking at things. It is not science versus spirituality. Spirituality is an overarching kind of a phenomenon. Science fits in there. Science is an examination of the external world. And yoga is an examination, is a science of the inner world itself. So I think we need to really revisit some of those categories and to redefine them for the benefit of the students. Thank you.
So another question, sir.
Sure.
So why
Sure.
is
Please.
why is there this fascination is lacking? For example, if the AI comes, like for example ChatGPT, students are so fascinated by it. But if you hold a seminar on, let's say, spirituality and religion, handful of students will probably turn up. So I'm just trying to understand why this fascination is lacking when it comes to spirituality, and there's so much of overwhelming response when we're talking about, AI and everything related to science.
Richa ji, my answer is very simple, because like you, I have been in the academic world, which has been largely, quote unquote, secular and leftist and Marxist. And I have not only survived, but may I say that I have also prospered. So I think the art of knowing how to position oneself, how to place oneself, it is important to think of the different paradigms which are there and to reposition ourselves so that we will be acceptable. If we really believe in a conventional and a traditional manner of presenting ourselves, then obviously we will be misunderstood. So I think I have written about travel writing. My books on women have been published by Oxford University Press. I have just written a book about cosmopolitan modernity. But may I say that everything is from the Aurobindonian point of view. Because whether it is the post-colonial critics, multiculturalists like Charles Taylor, etc., there are many dead ends. So it's a question of epistemology. How are we going to seek knowledge? What is the right method? Sri Aurobindo is offering one. We cannot say that that is the. The moment we say that that is the method, exclusive method, I think we will be unfair to the Aurobindonian spirit. Sri Aurobindo is extremely liberal and diverse and versatile in his approach. So if you just offer it, I was invited to Pondicherry University Philosophy Department, Pradeep, and there was a lot of hostility before I went there. I talked about multiculturalism, I talked about identity issues from Sri Aurobindo's point of view, in an important chapter in War and Self-Determination called, Self-Determination. And the head, Professor Thomas, said, Dr. Mohanty, if you present Sri Aurobindo in this manner, we have no quarrel with Sri Aurobindo. So I think there's a great responsibility as exponents how we are going to present. I went to JNU and I presented my talk about Sri Aurobindo contemporary.
What did they say?
JNU. I went to JNU, I went to the bastion of the left movement and the Dalit. And the person who was present in the audience was Gopal Guru. Gopal Guru was present. I just love to talk with what the adversaries. I don't like this kind of talking to the converted. I welcome the opportunity of counter question and debates of this kind if one is really. Because I am not a proselytizer. Why should I be worried if somebody says something different about Sri Aurobindo? I am here to press my point of view. Gopal Guru said.
She raised a question.
Yes, Gopal Guru said, I just come. Gopal Guru said again the same thing. Dr. Mohanty, we have no quarrel with Sri Aurobindo.
So, like you said, why are the younger generation or people in general, they are not able to have that same kind of enthusiasm for spirituality? The thing is, as far as scientific knowledge is concerned, it is based on a database. So you can get advantage from the cumulative knowledge acquired from all the previous generation scientists or whatever. You don't need any special ability to imbibe the knowledge that has been acquired. But for spirituality, the journey starts afresh for each individual. You get no advantage from what Sri Aurobindo has achieved or the mother has achieved. You have to gain every step. You have to climb every step. The knowledge that is there in Life Divine or Savitri or Synthesis, that is not going to help you unless you grow internally every step. And that's a difficult journey for each person. For each person, that's a difficult journey. You have to grow internally. You don't get any advantage from what the other. So technology, science, you don't have to have any special ability. Just cram your head, you have the knowledge. So you feel good, you feel powerful. The knowledge is coming to you so easily. But spirituality, its inner growth is very difficult. Every step of the way has to be fought and acquired.
Yes.
So that is the.
And I think that's a very good note to end. Not end, just take a pause in our deliberations and we can continue over tea. But I just want to take this moment to really thank Sachi Bhai for this wonderful journey that you've taken us on. Starting from Baroda and why university and media are not hospitable, to Sri Aurobindo, to Guru as a thinker, doer, so many things you brought in. So I don't know if it will take very long for me to even summarize these things, but some of the things that you really pointed out, which we seem to be forgetting over and over again, Sri Aurobindo's cautions, whether it was regarding the Korean War or the Gunda Raj or Bolshevism, very important things as we walk towards the future. So I really want to take the moment to just, acknowledge the great introspective and collective, reflective journey that you've taken us on. And I want to thank everyone for joining.